Night settled over the liminal plain like a held breath, the kind of darkness that was not empty, but waiting. Fog curled low across the ground, drifting in slow, thoughtful spirals around the boots of Gus, the grim ghost gambler. He stood alone at the center of the world between worlds, hands in his pockets, eyes half-lidded, pretending he was not nervous. In the consumer-driven landscape of our modern world, we often talk about the boundaries of business and technology. But in the verse, the boundaries that matter are those between the living, the dead, and the elemental. A spark popped behind him, then another. Then a whole swarm of fire flares spiraled upward in a bright, chaotic halo, as Flit, the lit fire god, burst into existence with a grin that could ignite dry air. "You called, Ghost Boy?" Flit said, his flame hair crackling with an intensity that pushed back the surrounding gloom. Gus did not answer. He did not need to. The fog around him brightened, which was his version of a smile. It was a subtle shift, much like the aerodynamic tweaks we see on a front wing. But for those who knew Gus, the message was clear. The wind shifted. A tumbleweed rolled in from a direction that did not exist. Wendy, the Wild West witch, stepped out of the swirl, her hat tipped low, and her boots clicking like spell sparks against the ethereal ground. "Boys," she said, "if we are doing this, we are doing it right." Ripples formed at her feet as Turner rose from a pool that had not been there a moment ago, water flurries orbiting him like droplets caught in a dream. A miniature thundercloud drifted in behind him, carrying Brooke, with lightning blinking in her eyes like a digital readout. Frost whispered across the ground as Thalen appeared, silent and crystalline, and then the air bent inward, pebbles lifting into orbit as kin stepped forward, gravity humming around them like a heartbeat. The 6 elemental lords stood in a circle now: fire, water, weather, ice, gravity, and void. This was a gathering of power that had not been seen in an age, a convergence of forces that usually remain separate and distinct. Gus cleared his throat, the fog around him trembling. "I need a binding," he said. Wendy raised an eyebrow. "For you?" Gus shook his head and pointed behind him. Lloyd stood there, his shoulders slumped, and his aura flickering with that familiar lost luck glow. And layered over him, shimmering like a pun-shaped shadow, was Larry, the ghost of Pun Past. Larry waved weakly. "Hi, I am, in here," he said. Lloyd sighed, his voice heavy with the weight of 1,000 bad jokes. "I yielded," he admitted. The 6 stared at the pair. The spectacle was so bizarre that it deserved a deeper look, much like a financial institution operating behind the scenes of a coffee shop. Flit burst out laughing, sparks flying from his fingertips. "Oh, this is going to be good," he shouted. Turner stepped closer, the ripples at his feet softening as he analyzed the two figures. "They are compatible," he noted, in a strange way. Brooke grinned, her thunder rumbling in agreement. "Storm energy approves," she added. Thalen circled them, frost forming a perfect ring on the ground, while Kin hummed, the gravity bending gently toward Lloyd. "He can hold more than he believes," Kin whispered. Gus stepped forward, his fog swirling like a cloak. "So, can we bind them, Phoenix style?" The 6 looked to Flit. In these matters, fire decides. Flit snapped his fingers, and a fire flare landed on his shoulder like a tiny general. "Only one question matters," he said. He stepped up to Lloyd, his flame eyes narrowing. "Do you choose this? Not the ghost, not the pun, not the chaos, the bond." Lloyd looked at Larry, and Larry looked at Lloyd, and for the first time, they spoke in perfect unison. "Yes." The world erupted. Fire flares spiraled upward in a blazing helix, while water flares rippled outward in concentric rings. Weather flares crackled like tiny thunderclaps, and ice flares shimmered in crystalline arcs. Gravity flares hummed, pulling the very air inward, and void flares flickered like negative stars in the firmament. The 6 raised their hands, and the elements converged. In the center of it all, Lloyd and Larry glowed with a new shared light. A liminal shimmer that was not fire, or fog, or pun, or luck, but something entirely new. It was a transformation that mirrored the most complex engineering projects, where disparate parts are fused into a single high-performance machine. When the light faded, Lloyd stood taller. Larry hovered inside him like a second outline, a ghostly blueprint of a man who had finally found his place. And Gus, the grim ghost gambler, felt something shift in his own chest, as if the bond had reached into the void and pulled him closer too. Lloyd blinked, and the air around him bent. Numbers flickered faintly in his vision. Odds, risks, and chances. He gasped as the world rearranged itself into probabilities. He was no longer just a victim of bad luck. He was a master of the outcome. Larry tried a pun, and reality itself flinched. A shockwave rippled outward, distorting the space around them. Gus laughed. "Weaponized cringe," he said. "Beautiful." Lloyd took a step, and Larry whispered a directional pun. Space folded like paper, and they reappeared instantly beside Gus. Gus stared in disbelief. "You just void-stepped," he said. Lloyd stared back, his eyes wide. "I did?" Fog curled around them both, merging and swirling to form a shared ghost state. Lloyd's body flickered half-transparent, while Gus's form sharpened in response. Larry glowed like a neon outline inside the fog. The first liminal bond stood before the six. Flit crossed his arms, fire flares cheering around him. "Well, that is new," he remarked. Wendy tipped her hat. "That is dangerous," she added. Kin nodded in agreement. "That is balanced." Turner smiled softly. "That is healing." Brooke crackled with excitement. "That is chaos." Thalen whispered, "That is truth." And Gus, watching Lloyd test his new ghost luck aura, whispered with quiet pride, "Told you, ghosts do not do fake." The night breathed out, and the bond held. It was a moment of stability in a world that is often defined by its volatility. But as we know, from the world of high-stakes development and global finance, power never awakens quietly. Somewhere in the distance, something old and watching stirred. A new frequency had entered the verse, and the implications were yet to be fully understood. But what do you guys think? Do you think the binding of Lloyd and Larry was a necessary step for their survival, or has Gus introduced a level of chaos into the verse that cannot be contained? Is this new probability vision a gift or a curse? It is an interesting, murky gray area, and I am interested to see what you have to say in the comments. We will be here to document every shift and every new development. Thank you for watching and sticking around through this journey. If you are new to the channel, subscribing would mean a lot as we continue to explore these liminal spaces together. Until next time, keep an eye on the odds.